Good afternoon. Welcome back, everyone. I hope that you're doing well, feeling good, having a great day out there, just in a good mood. Not for you guys, but today it's Easter, and my wife and I and Liam just got back from a brunch with a bunch of people. And we had a great time, so I'm in a really good mood. And to kind of close out the day, even though it's not the end of the day, it's 4:30. But before we go for dinner, it's time to dive into a full album listen. We're going to listen to Symphony number 3. This is going to be composed by Henryk Górecki, I believe is how you pronounce his name, which was composed in 1976. Something a little bit more modern, a little bit more contemporary when it comes to this type of music that we're listening to. We're listening to this because it was suggested and sponsored by Andreas. Andreas, thank you so much for the recommendation. Really, really appreciate the support and the request as well. I don't believe anyone else in particular had suggested this. I don't recall seeing Mr. Górecki in the comments. I'm going to do a quick search just to make sure, but I don't recall. Let me see if anyone's recommended him at least. Actually, I stand very correct. A Space of Love. You actually recommended this one as well. Yerker Floor, it seems like you also agreed and said that this is a good piece of music. You had mentioned Górecki before. Mr. Wondrous, Gaia Eternal, did you mention this one? It seems like you may have. Lee Jeffrey. Actually, quite a few of you have mentioned this particular symphony. So I'm very curious to hear not what all the fuss is about, because there's no fussing, but what all the talk is about. I'm very curious to dive in. So let's go ahead and do that. Right now, I appreciate you all joining me here today. I do see that from the album, it's in 3 movements. So because like the first movement, for example, is 26 minutes long, then 9 minutes long for the next, and then 16 minutes long after that, there's a chance I may stop it briefly, at least to kind of give you my thoughts, because 26 minutes is a long time for me to, I can't let this go on for the whole hour. I could, but then I'm going to lose a lot of what I want to say, and I don't want to over talk during the music. So I may pause it briefly between parts, between the movements, just to discuss a little bit and give you my thoughts before moving on to the next one. We'll kind of see. We'll feel it out. We'll feel it out. But let's go ahead and begin with the first. I mean, technically it's the whole thing. You know what I mean. Symphony number 3, Górecki, This Sip of Water. Mm-hmm. That's to you. Here we go. Oh, it started on the second for some reason. I don't know why it did that. Back to the first. Oh, it's on shuffle. That's why. It's like just cello starting off here. I actually really like that it's taking its time and building, not rushing at all. Take its time. Five minutes in, and now the flowers, those first petals, begin to bloom and open up. Gorgeous setting of the scene before you know you are in the scene. It's like just when you think that it can't go any further, it does. It just builds up. It's like opening the light to us. Come on. If this is almost 20 more minutes of this, I'm actually completely okay with that. I'm 100% okay with that. It sounds like traveling into space, like a beautiful, successful launch. I may have some modern bias though. Down a little, around a third of the way. You've got this beautiful hill to climb, watch the sunset, and come back down a little bit. Softening the light, softening the light. halfway through and a held note. I did not know there was going to be singing here. kind of goes back to the first build-up, in a sense. this is like the long exhale of the piece. it's holding the note the same way it did before the singer came in. Sounds like, as faint as it is. Okay, I'm sure that is somewhat sacrilegious to stop movements between, but I do want to just take a moment to kind of talk about the first movement here. What a really cool concept and extremely well executed and beautiful sounding. I did not expect there to be singing in the middle of this to what it was building up to. So this is 26 minutes of a hill, and it's slow. It's basically 4 to 5 minutes before we really start to, like I said, musically hear those flowers open up and bloom. But it's a slow and steady crawl, patience, not in a rush, notwithstanding just taking its time to get to the peak. And once we get to the peak, we are absolutely glorified with this radiant light. It's like we walked up a hill and we're tired, we're sweating, we're pulling all this weight, the dragging of the strings, right? It acts like we're pulling up a backpack up this mountain and we're just going up. We have our walking stick. Then we get over the crest of the ridge, and what are we greeted with but this magnificent sunrise? And in all its radiant light just bathing us and the hillside from which we just climbed. And so the music kind of acts like that. It's trudging from the lowest of depths, and it brings us up with its weight. It drags us up with a calm, slow, and like very, very humble melody, right? The melody is very simple in the way it moves once you get to hear it, and somewhat predictable, but the way that the instruments begin to layer on top of one another as they build, it adds layers of elegance and beauty to it, and it just continually glorifies itself until it gets to that top. And once it gets to that top, it is just explosive with euphoria and magnificence. And then, as if that wasn't good enough for that climax to happen, the coolest part of this is when that note holds. Because no other note in this buildup has held. It's been continually moving. It's like time stops. And for me, I'm like, what's going to happen next? And then the singing begins. And how cool is that? And gorgeous, gorgeous vocals that soar here. The vocals are being performed by Doreen DeFay is handling that. And just divine listening to her. And she takes us above the sunrise. She shows us the heart of the sunrise, not to quote Yes. And then for a brief moment, this angel appears to us. Then she withdraws back into the clouds. And then just as we came up the hill, we begin our descent. And now it's a reverse climax, I guess, a fade out of sorts, but the longest fade out in history as we back away and climb away from the lights. And then slowly that overwhelming light becomes dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. It's like we exhaled the magnificence that we heard. What a cool way to build this music up. Absolutely brilliant. And let me pull you guys up here really quick. Here's the lyrics, which I had to pull up really, really quickly. Translation roughly. Son nice and chosen, separate your wounds with your mother. And after all, son nice she wore in her heart. She served you faithfully, speech to mother. She was glad because you already hid from me. My hope is nice. Now it says this is a rough translation. I didn't see anything here in the Wikipedia article when I pulled this up here really quickly. But let's see. I mean, it's clearly mother and son related. The solo soprano sings. I don't want to read about the other movements. We haven't gotten there yet. Solo soprano sings Polish text in each of the three movements. The first is a 15th century Polish lament of Mary, Mother of Jesus. Okay, I don't want to read about the other ones. Let's stick with the first here. So the first is the lento. Sostenuto, tranquillo, ma cantabile. Typically 27 minutes in duration. The first movement equals the combined length of the second and third movements, and is based off the 15th century Laments of Mary from the Lesogora Songs collection of the Holy Cross Monastery. Comprising of 3 thematic sections, the rise, the climax, and the fall. The movement opens with a canon based on a 24-bar theme, which is repeated several times. Begins in 2 parts. Okay, that means that each appearance of the melody in a new part is in a different mode, which is kind of interesting. Like, although I don't exactly understand it, it seems incredibly interesting. After the canon is played, it is repeated. After that, the canon continues, but the voices gradually drop out one by one, from the lowest upwards and the highest downwards, so they kind of meet in the middle. The canon ends with all the strings sustaining the single note, which was such a cool moment. The soprano enters on the same notes in the second section and builds to a climax on the final word, which is beautiful. The third section of the movement is a long denouement, which I'm imagining means like a come down, basically. Lines typically come to a resolution, usually follows the climax. Another canon based on the same melody in the opening, but this time starts with 8 parts, and the voices drop out from high to low. And it ends with the lower strings and piano, which you heard a little bit of those chords there as well. That is really phenomenal. Let's move on to the second movement. I don't want to lose completely the momentum that we built, but I felt that I had to speak a little bit on what we heard, because that was incredible. What a great piece that one was. Okay, second movement. You could sit out in nature and just listen to this. It's a nice little resolution right here. It just changed. I like how this treads a very similar path and so perfectly comes after the first movement. When this one doesn't feel as much as of a hill that we climb, this one's a little bit more evenly paced. And yet it still does reach a really brilliant climactic moment when the singing reaches that particular high notes, and it's like the heavens open up, the skies widen, the blue is shining so much bluer, and everything just looks so much more vivid and feels that much more vivid. I love how her singing comes through in that particular moment, kind of peeking through the clouds, so to speak. And the music at first, it starts off a little differently than it ends, right? Like if we go back just a little bit here, it starts off with almost this shining light kind of materializing, and then it kind of sits. You know, to me, it kind of stands at first, and then it sits. And then, of course, you know, eventually the strings, in my opinion, become a little bit more sullen, while her voice acts as a motif of strength that kind of pushes through. Her voice is what pushes through those dark clouds and kind of opens them up and widens the skies in that particular moment. But then it kind of goes back into what the first movement did. It kind of, after she's done singing, kind of sits itself back down, and that hole that was in the sky begins to close up, and then you never even knew it was there. So it's really cool how this perfectly follows the first movement, giving us something different, but in many respects thematically kind of something very similar here in this piece. And especially in the beginning, like this would, I mentioned, but this would just be a great piece of music to sit and listen to while watching nature unfold before you. Whether you're going out and bird watching, or you're sitting by a lake, or you're sitting on your porch in the mountain or in a cottage or wherever you are. Like, this is just something to put on and just watch scenes of nature unfold before you, in my opinion. It just feels like it has that kind of sound to it. And I once again really like how everything kind of layers itself. It doesn't seem as strongly layered as in the first movement, but still layered nicely nonetheless. And what's kind of interesting is I couldn't help but read, because I have the lyrics pulled up, and I couldn't help but read this little blurb here. These words were written, we haven't looked at the words yet, but they were written on the walls of a Gestapo prison cell by 18-year-old Helena Wanda Blasusikona, who had been incarcerated in the Polish town of Zakopane. The translation reads, here it goes, it just took me here. "Oh mama, don't cry, no. Immaculate Queen of Heaven, you support me always." Which kind of, if one, is incredible for her to write this on her prison wall. I mean, this is how I read it, telling her mom not to cry for her possible and incoming death, but also, looking upwards for support. And then I guess that really makes sense with what, the singer is singing and how the strength that she's singing it with and how hopeful. Now reading that, it comes across as just incredible. Looking at the Wikipedia, lento e largo tranquillissimo. The 9-minute second movement is for soprano, clarinets, horns, harp, piano, and strings, and contains libretto formed from the prayer to the Virgin Mary inscribed by Helena on the cell wall. According to the composer, I wanted the second movement to be of Highland character, not in the sense of pure folklore, but the climate of Podhale. I wanted the girl's monologue as if hummed, on the one hand almost unreal, on the other towering over the orchestra. So almost reaching a certain beautiful uncanniness into the music. It opens with a folk drone and alternates with suddenly plunges. That's why I said it kind of dips down. Those clouds close up, almost cinematic, very very cinematic, as a matter of fact. As the soprano begins to sing, her words are supported by the orchestra until she reaches a climaxing top, A sharp. Is that sharp or minor? Minor. The movement is resolved when the strings hold a chord without diminuendo for nearly 1.5 minutes. The final words of the movement are the first 2 lines of the Polish Ave Maria, sung twice on a repeated pitch by soprano. This is the type of symphonic music that it's just nice to sit with. Some you listen to for maybe something more adventurous, maybe more experimental, maybe more exciting. For, of course, many, many different feelings. But to me, this is one that's just pleasurable in its calm euphoria. Let's move on into the final movement of the piece. Let me get the lyrics and stuff up. pluck that piano. I like how she sings in this swing, the strings. These other strings are coming up behind it. Let's make it to a chord change. It's a really nice change right there. It's like a tension kind of build up in the piece. this perfectly captures like the climax of the whole piece, the whole symphony. This little sway, continually holds us mesmerized, like hypnosis almost, and then she just sings on top of it. Change. Still have 3 minutes. It's like it just stopped and recreated itself right here. Love those little chords that come through. Brief notes. And a hopeful note. Sometimes music just comes at a good time. And this was nonetheless a great time. Symphony number 3. Henryk Górecki. This was a beautiful listen in totality. I know I paused it between movements, but I felt that for this particular listening case, it was appropriate for me to do so I could kind of talk a little bit. With the third part here, you know what word I was thinking of with this piece is stillness. There's a certain meditative stillness in the music with the way that the strings sway back and forth, almost like a certain sort of hypnotism that's happening there. And then she begins to sing on top of that. At certain moments, the strings break through with her. We have a particular chord that keeps on being played, like sounds like piano. That kind of is just a singular note, I should say. And it kind of foreshadows her coming in. And when she comes in, she pulls in some of the strings with her to kind of push through in the undertow. And I say that this track, and to a certain extent, the symphony as a whole kind of has a stillness to it, because it's not like the music is moving maybe in a conventional way from point A to point B to point C. It's not changing, or each movement is different, sure, but it's not like it's progressing off of one another in what I would say is a conventional way. It's more building up and down and up and down. It's an inhale exhale kind of exercise while the feet of the person isn't moving. I hope that makes sense. The music is, the symphony is standing still, but what comes in is a breath of music and an exhale of music, an inhale of more music, second movement, exhale, and so on and so forth. And it's a constant breathing that's happening in the music, rather than the music moving and walking from one place to another. I hope that makes sense the way I described it. Sometimes I don't know if the way I describe things actually makes sense when it comes out. But this particular piece is an exercise in that particular stillness, because there isn't a lot of movement laterally. It's vertically, the way that it does so. And once again, the lead singer here, let me pull up her name, Doreen DeFay, is wonderful to listen to. There's a certain sadness in her voice, and I'm once again getting a little bit of a bleakness, but a hopefulness as well. Perhaps it's because of the lyrics and the story behind the second movement. But even in this movement, I have the lyrics translated here for ourselves, and we kind of get something a little bit similar. Like, what happened to my sweet son? His evil enemies probably killed him during the uprising. Okay, when I was first reading this, I was thinking this could be kind of like the first movement, Mother Mary of Jesus, and Mary talking about Jesus. But this seems to be about something else, and not about the concentration camp or the incarceration camp, both, I guess, from the second movement. You wicked people, for the sake of the holy God, why did you kill my son? She would no longer have any support for herself, even if I cried out my old eyes. And as the music goes through this bleak cry of pain, at the end, after the singing is over, there is a little change in the note. There's a little change in the note that kind of rings hopeful. Like perhaps her voice is gone, just as the singer stops singing, but maybe after, there's some sort of hope, even maybe after she's gone. Even if my bitter tears were not enough to make me sick, my son would not revive me. He lies there in the grave, and I don't know where he is, although they ask questions among people in many places. Maybe the poor guy is lying in a hole and he could lie on his stove. Hey, tweet him there. Of course, this is not a great translation. I'm just using Google to translate. Can't find him. Blossom around, let him be a boy. All the leaves are cheerful. And so it seems that there may be a sort of hope, perhaps, and maybe that's reflected in the final lines of the music. But an incredible, I think that this is heart-wrenching in the way it's performed. It says the tempo of the third movement is similar to that of the previous two, and subtle changes in dynamism and mode make it more complex and evolving than it may first appear, which to me, someone who doesn't understand the depths of this type of music, does sound relatively simple, but apparently not so. With a duration of approximately 17 minutes, it comprises 3 verses in A minor, and like the first movement, is constructed from evolving variations on a simple motif, which you clearly hear. So as soprano sings the final words, the key changes to a pure diatonic A major, which accompanies, in David L's words, the ecstatic final stanza. And this is what it says. Oh, sing for him, God's little songbirds, since his mother cannot find him. And you, God's little flowers, may you blossom all around, that my son may sleep a happy sleep. Blossom around wherever he sleeps, even if I don't know where that is. Which is incredibly sad. The orchestra returns to A minor. In Górecki's own words, finally there came that unvarying, persistent, obstinate waltzik on a chord of A, sounding well when played piano, so that all the notes are audible. For the soprano, I used a device characteristic of Highland singing, suspending the melody on the third C sharp and descending from the fifth to the third, while the ensemble moves stepwise downward in 6. Let's read a little bit more about this particular piece of music. There's quite a decent amount of information on this one, but this was gorgeous to listen to. It was a kind of a lesson in meditation and finding beauty in stillness. Like, this was the still life of music in this particular genre. The work is indicative of the transition between Górecki's earlier dissonant style and his later more tonal style, and represented a stylistic breakthrough. It was premiered in '77 at the Royan International Festival. A solo soprano sings well, you mentioned this part. The second, a message written on the wall of a Gestapo cell during World War II. And the third, I guess it wasn't a concentration camp. Technically, it was a cell in the Gestapo, which probably is kind of close. And the third, a Silesian folk song of a mother searching for her son killed by the Germans in the Silesian uprisings. The first and third movements were written from the perspective of a parent who has lost a child, and the second movement from that of a child separated from a parent. The dominant themes of the symphony are motherhood, despair, and suffering, which is what a dramatic but touching subject to reach upon and to touch and discuss musically here. Until '92, Górecki was only known to connoisseurs primarily as one of several composers of the Polish school responsible for the post-war Polish music renaissance. Let's see. It says that this has sold more than 1 million copies, vastly exceeding the expected lifetime sales of a typical symphonic recording by a 20th century composer. That's amazing. In March 2024, a very carefully handwritten copy of the score from the collection of the National Library of Poland, written by the composer himself, was presented to a permanent exhibition. That's an honor. Despite the political climate that was unfavorable to modern art, post-war Polish composers enjoyed an unprecedented degree of compositional freedom. Górecki had won recognition among avant-garde composers for the experimental, dissonant, and serialist works of his early career. Goes on and goes on and goes on. Let's read more about the music here. So let's see, symphony, solo. Let's leave the interpretation part. It was dedicated to his wife. When asked why, he responded, "Who was I supposed to dedicate it to?" He never sought to explain the symphony as a response to a political or historical event. Instead, he maintained that the work is an evocation of the ties between mother and child. That's it. He wasn't looking for anything more specific than that. That's a deep enough subject. He was commissioned to write music in response to the Holocaust in the '60s, but was unable to finish any of the pieces he started for that purpose. While Górecki stated that for many years he sought to produce a work specifically in response to Auschwitz, he resisted that interpretation of the symphony, which he preferred to be viewed in a wider context. Other critics have attempted to interpret the symphony in spiritual terms, an approach which Górecki also dismissed. He said simply, ties between a mother and child. He said, don't look any deeper. That's what I want it to be. Still, others have suggested that it can be understood as a compendium of Polish history. Górecki said of the work, many of my family died in concentration camps. I had a grandfather who was in Dachau, an aunt in Auschwitz. You know how it is between Poles and Germans. But Bach was a German too, and Schubert and Strauss. Everyone has his place on this little earth. That's all behind me. That's a great line right there. So the third symphony is not about war. It's not a disarray. It's a normal symphony of sorrowful songs. Period. It's all he wanted it to be. So it was first recorded in '78, increasing his recognition as well. When it was later repackaged as a soundtrack album, it sold well. I can see this as a soundtrack in some respects, especially the first part. I could really hear, I could hear and understand this as like, this is just my mind and where it went to, perhaps with some recency bias, like a space shuttle go up and just traveling up into space. The ecstasy and the exaltation of like that feeling of going up and kind of rising up there. And as you saw, we did listen to this particular version, this album. Andreas said that this was his favorite recording of this particular symphony, and it was gorgeous. This is a really, really wonderful piece as a whole to listen to, and I would love to listen to this and like not go on a hike, not walk and explore, sit and explore. I feel like it would match really, really well. It hits bleak tones in certain ways, in certain respects, but then it always reveals itself to the beauty of hope, I would say. listening to this. This was a really fantastic listen. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. As always, I appreciate you being here and stopping by as we dive into, symphonic music. I know that this is technically maybe not era-wise classical music, but could I call this classical music, or should I say like symphonic music? Because in my mind, I'm thinking classical, even though I know that this is much more contemporary in release. But anyways, I hope that you guys had a great time listening with me. As always, I appreciate you being here. Please come back tomorrow, and I would love to know your thoughts on this one. This was a really nice listen. Have a great one, guys. Bye.